Hi guys, this is Sam from Fluid Social, talking to you from o Museu do Amanhã, meaning the Museum of Tomorrow. Today I'm going to give you a breakdown of why I believe that Rio is the best place to be in the world right now during the coronavirus pandemic. And I'm going to take you through all of the details that you need to know if you're planning a trip here towards the end of 2020 or 2021, the financial things you need to consider, safety concerns, health, wealth, dating, social and relationships. But before I go into the video, I want to quickly give you guys an idea of who I am for those of you that don't know. My name is Sam and I'm a dating coach and social skills coach based in Rio de Janeiro. Essentially, my job is to help foreigners connect with locals. I help men approach women over here in Brazil, teach them some of the nuances, and I help connect people with both locals and other foreigners over here in Rio. Here in Rio, what is a typical way? How normally would a man come and approach you?
I think well, in Rio, I think people are quite straightforward.
Definitely.
And I mean, it's very more likely that men will approach women.
Yeah. Have you ever been approached by a man from Europe, a European man?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tina, poor hog.
Yes.
Was your experience of talking with a European man different from Carioca man?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's totally different. I think English people is not too serious, but a little bit more serious than Carioca.
I'm very serious.
Yeah, you're serious.
So throughout this video, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments or email me at admin@fluid.social. I am doing some coaching out here for men who are looking to meet, approach and connect and date with women over here in Rio de Janeiro. So I'm going to be doing coaching from the 17th to the 23rd of December and then from the 7th to the 13th of January. And just one little bit of housekeeping. For those of you that are interested in coming for New Year and Carnival, the New Year's traditional fireworks on Copacabana Beach have been disbanded, meaning that there's going to be lots of smaller events across the city of Rio, but there won't be that one major fireworks event on Copacabana Beach due obviously to coronavirus concerns and safety concerns. And the carnival officially has been moved to July. So the official carnival will happen in July of 2021. However, if you are interested in coming here to Rio during February to March, there still will be celebrations. People are going to be partying. And honestly, right now, the social life is amazing. People are partying, people are going to the bars, people are hanging out on the beach. Life pretty much continues as normal. So if you're considering a trip to Rio, I highly recommend it. So first I'm going to go through the financial situation, everything you need to think about with regards to money. So here in Rio right now, basically the financial situation, if you're from the States or from Europe, has never been better. It's roughly £1 to 7 reals right now, meaning that your money's going about 30% further than it would have roughly 1 year ago. So when you're thinking about preparing your finances here in Rio, what I highly recommend is arriving with 2 international bank cards at least. For me, that's Monzo and Starling. Other options are Revolut. Basically, there's many options, but make sure you bring at least 2. These cards work basically anywhere. If you want to buy a meal in a restaurant, you can use your international banking card. If you want to buy a bottle of water from a little kiosk on the street, you can use your international bank card. You can't use American Express, and in order to open a Brazilian bank account, if you're thinking of staying a little bit longer, you'll need CPF, which is your individual personal number here in Brazil. Sort of like a passport number, but it's your personal number. And for me, getting that can be a little bit of a pain. You have to fill out a form online, print it out, bring it to a consulate, book in a time, bring your passport, get a copy, pay a little bit of money for it, just a small amount, but there's a lot of bureaucracy in getting any documents. So if you want to avoid having to use the CPF, it's easy to bring an international bank card, and your phone contract probably won't work here. Unless you're with 3 Mobile or a couple of other phone companies, you may need to get a Brazilian SIM card. And again, getting that Brazilian SIM card requires CPF. I purposefully got a contract with 3 Mobile because it allows the same exact deal that I have in the UK as it allows here in Rio, and I haven't been faffed to get hold of a CPF yet because I hate bureaucracy. So 2 international bank cards. Think about getting a phone contract that works here in Brazil, or make sure you understand how to get the CPF. I will attach a link in the cheat sheet that I'm attaching in the Facebook group, link in the description. If you need any advice on how to get CPF or anything else, it will be attached here. So before you arrive here in Rio, there's a few things that you should think about purchasing. As I said, your purchasing power is going to be high right now in Rio. However, there are a few things that are actually more expensive here than they are in the States or in the UK. The first of which is clothing. Now, when I arrived in Rio, I thought, oh, you know, things are cheap in Rio. I'll just buy everything when I get there. And then I soon found out that the options for buying mid-range clothing, the sort of H&M, Zara equivalent, are extremely limited. The quality is extremely poor, and generally speaking, it's not a good idea. I'd highly recommend going out and doing all the shopping that you need to do before you arrive here. It's about 1.5 times the price for a similar quality, but generally the clothes I've bought here tend to break very quickly. The other thing to think about is electronics. Now again, most things are cheaper, however electronics are about 1.5 times or more the price that they are in the UK. Cariocas and Brazilians actually have a joke at the moment because the new iPhone is 15,000 reais, 15,000 reais, which is a ridiculous sum of money for the average Brazilian to spend, and they're comparing it to buying a car or buying a year's worth of housing. And so electronics are famously ridiculous in terms of the price. So even if you're thinking about buying another charger here, buying an adapter once you arrive, buying whatever you need in terms of electronics, I highly recommend getting what you need in your own country, because I found myself in an enormous mall, basically a warehouse of electronics, and I found myself not being able to find a simple adapter because none of the stores sold it. So both in terms of organization and in terms of price, in terms of preparing well, I highly recommend sorting out the clothes that you need for Rio and the electronics before you get here. Clothing is actually pretty simple. All you really need for most days is a couple of t-shirts, a vest, some shorts or board shorts, a sunga, which is a tiny sort of male bikini if you're feeling confident in that way to show yourself off on the beach, some Havaianas, which you can buy here for £2 or £3. They're the only thing that I would buy here. And if you want, what I've got, some chinos, some moccasins, and a couple of shirts. Keep it light, keep it simple. Brazilians tend to dress more in trouser style, which is slim fit. They don't wear really skinny jeans. It's more of a thing of the gay community. It's more normal to wear very tight fitting clothing and skinny jeans. Most Cariocas normally wear just slim fit, pale jeans, a loose fitting shirt or short sleeve shirt or t-shirt, tennis shoes, trainers, flip-flops, and maybe some moccasins. But even moccasins are a little bit on the gringo side. That's my one gringo card that I play here in Rio. Rio has a huge diversity and distribution of wealth. There are a lot of millionaires living on Leblon Beach, living in the nice, clean, richer areas, but there's also a huge amount of poverty here. And so what that means for you is whatever your budget, Rio can accommodate you. You can basically get a full lunch, including meat, vegetables, carbohydrates, from anywhere between £2.50 to about £30, £40, depending on what your budget is. And actually, the £2.50 lunches, which they call executivo here, or PF, or executive, they are pretty much what you would get at the homes of the people who cook it. So mothers or fathers cooking for their children, nice quality meat, good tasty meal for about £2.50 if that's how you want to live. Or on the other side of the spectrum, there are amazing restaurants that you'll find all across Rio, which house the rich and wealthy. When you're thinking about where to stay here in Rio, I would recommend 4 different areas to stay, of which one is better than the others. So I'm going to go through the 4 places in descending order relative to the price. So number one spot, you've got Leblon. Leblon is the sort of posh, recently refurbished in the 1970s area that's home to some of the best bars and restaurants. Generally, there's less poverty, the streets are cleaner, the people are young and attractive, and so Leblon is that number one spot. I've lived in all four of these, by the way, so I'm fairly certain about these decisions for travelers. The second one to think about for me is Botafogo. Now, if you're a little bit more on the sort of edgy side, if you want the cool, hip, 420 friendly cafes and more sort of university atmosphere, a bit cheaper, a bit more colourful, I'd recommend Botafogo. It's got more of a hipster strain, and there are sort of old colonial palaces there with open gardens, little schools, little small businesses. So it's more like the Shoreditch of London, if you're going to look at it like that. Leblon would be the Chelsea, Botafogo would be the Shoreditch. The third one is Ipanema. Now in Ipanema, as you've all heard the song, The Girl from Ipanema, famous for the song, it used to be the most fashionable place. It's still very nice. However, there has been an increase in poverty over the last 20, 30 years, and now it's a little bit more dirty. There's a bit of a weird vibe at night in Ipanema, in parts of Ipanema. So it's similar to Leblon, but a little bit less expensive and a little bit less nice, I would argue. And finally, you've got Copacabana. Obviously, all of you have heard about Copacabana, all of you are familiar with the name, and it seems to be the most well-known and the most frequented tourist destination. So with regard to Copacabana, I would say it's probably a no-go. Of the four, that is at the bottom of the pile. Reason being, yes, it was the key hotspot. Yes, it was where the Rat Pack and Frank Sinatra used to go, but because of its celebrity status, it attracted a lot of poverty. There are 3 favelas in and around Copacabana. There's a lot of poverty on the streets. It generally seems a little bit more forgotten, and it's generally populated by confused gringos who didn't do their research and watch my videos, old traditional families who have lived there for a long time, and prostitutes. Obviously, the beach is beautiful and you have nice kiosks all along the beach playing samba music with food and drinks, but generally speaking, to live, I wouldn't recommend it. Now, in terms of the prices of the 4 locations, if you are going to spend, let's say, £1,000 a month in Leblon, which is about the price of a decent studio, a very nice studio apartment there, for £1,000 per month, you would get the same apartment for £800 in Ipanema. So in Ipanema, it's £800, in Leblon, it's £1,000. In Copacabana, the same apartment's going to be £500 or £600. And in Botafogo, it's going to be about the same, £500 or £600. I prefer Botafogo to Copacabana, but obviously Copacabana has the name and the very nice beach, so that's why you're paying a slight premium on Copacabana over Botafogo. So again, I would highly recommend, if you've got the budget, to stay in Leblon. It's not particularly expensive if you're used to living in London or the States. It's by far the nicest. It's got the best nightlife, all of the best bars and restaurants. So Leblon is the go-to one. If you're on a bit more of a budget, have a look at Botafogo. So in my opinion, the best way to rent here in Rio is to use Airbnb. For me, I like to be able to cook my own food. I like to have my own apartment. I like to have my space. And so Airbnb is a really reliable way to book apartments. The other ways that you can think about are Facebook groups. There are many Facebook groups for tourists coming to Rio and many other guys who are going to be looking to share a place with you and with other people. So Airbnb is primary. Finding some people to share with on a Facebook group would be the second option. Obviously there are hotels as well, but you're paying a large premium on a hotel. So if you're staying more than a week, you are going to be losing a lot of money and you don't have the option of a kitchen as well. So those are the 3 main options that I would think about. Now, when it comes to actually booking that apartment, let's say on Airbnb, there are some things you should really look out for, even if you're staying in somewhere like Leblon, which is, as we said, the smarter area. The first of which is that even in the nice areas of Rio, it's difficult, you're never too far from a favela. And so even in Leblon, in the nicest area, to one side of the poshest, nicest shopping mall in Leblon, exists community housing, which is currently classed as a favela, meaning that it's under the influence of one of the drug gangs. And so it's not dangerous because it's in Leblon and there's a lot of police presence, but it's not a place that you would want to live. It has the vibe and the energy of a favela, and it's very dirty, a little bit smelly. So be careful, because sometimes you can book an apartment on Airbnb only to realize that you've booked one in a favela, and that was why it was 20% cheaper than the others. So you've got to be careful about not just the area you're staying in, but the exact location where it is, because that can make a difference. One street to another can make a difference here in Rio. So firstly, double check the location, make sure it's not in a favela. If you want to know specifics, feel free to drop me a message and I'll help you out with where to stay. The next thing you want to look at, which is really important, is air conditioning. Here in Rio, over these coming months, it's going to get extraordinarily hot. It can get up to 42, 43 degrees Celsius. And so you want to make sure not only that the apartment has air conditioning, but that the bedroom you're going to be sleeping in has functioning, working air conditioning. This is essential. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's going to make or break the quality of your trip. So double check, send a message, even if they list air conditioning, send a message to the host and double check that the air conditioning is strong and is working in the bedroom in which you're going to be sleeping. The third thing, and this applies more for single people, if you're a single guy or a single girl, make sure that if you're staying in a hotel or an Airbnb, if you want to be hooking up, if you want to be meeting people and connecting, that you're allowed to bring guests back. Now, in hotels, they often try and squeeze a bit of money out of travelers, and they don't make it obvious that you have to spend more money to bring someone back to your hotel. So double check, call ahead, make sure that the hotel will allow you to bring a person back. And with the Airbnb, send a message to the host and ask the following question. Hi, I love the look of the apartment. I'm thinking about staying from such and such a days. I've got a friend in Rio and I'd like to invite him or her over for lunch one day. Will they be welcome to come and have lunch at my apartment? If your host responds that yes, you are allowed to bring someone over for lunch, that basically means that the person on the door, the portaria, the doorman, is going to be relaxed about letting you bring back people, full stop. If you're allowed to bring back someone for lunch, it's very unlikely that you're going to be stopped in bringing someone back for the night. However, if you ask the host, am I allowed to hook up with people and bring them back for a party at my apartment, they're very likely going to say no, because they don't want to give you free rein to have parties and destroy the apartment and wake up the neighbors. So you've got to kind of be intelligent about how you ask. For me, every time I've asked if I'm allowed to have someone over for lunch, I've also been allowed to bring back a girl to stay over the night when I've been out the night before. So just ask that question just to get a feel for how relaxed they are about you bringing guests back to the apartment. I often get asked here in Rio, is it safe? Is Rio safe or is it dangerous? And I'm very hesitant to answer that question with a black and white answer, because the fact is you can live here safely or you can live here extremely dangerously. So there are some basic principles and rules to think about when you're trying to be safe and stay safe here. The first of which, it obviously depends on your location. If you stay on streets with other people in Leblon, Ipanema, Gavia, Jardim Botânico, generally speaking, you can stay very safe. If there are lights in the streets, there's other people walking around, and you're out and you're not being stupid, you're not wearing an expensive watch on your wrist with your phone out, flinging it around in your hand, you're gonna be fine. You won't have any problems. I've never had any problems with this. However, there are some dangerous areas. So even in the city of Rio de Janeiro, some places that you want to avoid going on your own, somewhere like Lapa at night. Lapa is the sort of downtown central area where there are loads of bars and crazy nightlife, sort of like the strip of Rio de Janeiro. If you go out there, keep an eye on your phone. I've had many clients be robbed out there because they weren't looking at their phone, they weren't paying attention, someone goes in their pocket, takes their phone and goes away. But more than just having your phone robbed, if you're not careful and you find yourself on a dark street alone somewhere like Lapa, it really is dangerous. There are people that might drive by in a car, snatch you into the car, get you to take out money at loads of different bank accounts at gunpoint, and then kick you out on the side of a street somewhere far away without anything. So I've had enough horror stories from here in Rio to know that there are parts of Rio that are dangerous, full stop. Do not find yourself alone at night in the center of Rio. And generally speaking, anywhere, if you find yourself walking down a dark street without people, there are risks. So things to remember: always stay with friends. If you're going out to the center of Rio at night, make sure you're always with friends, you're always around people in busy streets, and keep an eye on your phone. Don't wear expensive jewelry, don't wear expensive clothes, don't flaunt your wealth. It's not a place to flaunt your wealth. But generally speaking, if you stick to Ipanema, Copacabana, Leblon, the places that we've talked about, you can stay pretty much safe. The other safety concerns over here, even if you take someone back to your house, even if you meet a girl at a bar, be careful about who you take back. I'm not saying this is a common thing, or I'm not saying every girl or guy that you meet is going to rob you. Of course not. And it's not normal for this to happen. But I have known guys who've had experiences where they met a girl, they took her back to their house, and they found that she'd left in the morning with their phone and all their money. So you've got to be really careful, even with people, right? Just pay attention. There's a phrase in Rio where they say Brazil is not for beginners. And what they mean by this is that you get so many people traveling to Rio and not understanding that there is this culture, this small area of the culture where people kind of get one over you. And so you do have to keep your eye out and not let yourself be a target or a victim of this. You've got to be street smart. You've got to pay attention. You can't be displaying your tourist status too much. So there are also some safety precautions besides being robbed or, assaulted. Just some general safety precautions, right? For me, I'm a pale person. If you find yourself pale like me, firstly, I'm sorry. Secondly, bring sun cream. Yes, you might want a tan, but the sun is extremely strong here, and even 45 minutes to an hour you can get pretty burnt. So be careful. Even if you're just going outside for the day and you're not planning on staying on the beach, wear sun cream, protect your skin. Mosquitoes, if you go on any of the hikes or in the wilderness of Rio, there are wild mosquitoes who might carry diseases that you're not familiar with, that your body hasn't built a resistance to. Bring mosquito spray, bring insect spray. Even little things like, my Brazilian friends laugh at me, but the monkeys. There are monkeys swinging in the trees in some of the gardens, but these monkeys are hungry. And if they think you've got food, or if you do have food, they may look cute, but monkeys have been known to attack and scratch people to get hold of their food, and those scratches can hold diseases. And finally, the one that I'm really mocked for, jackfruit. There are these huge jackfruit hanging in the trees. I think they're one of the most dangerous things in Rio. If you're walking under a tree and a jackfruit falls on your head, it's game over. And the jackfruit do fall. So I just want you guys to pay attention to that phrase, Brazil is not for beginners. Because there are all sorts of little things that can happen. You might be walking on the street and not see that there's a hole in the middle of the road. Sometimes there are just holes in the road. Sometimes it rains so much that the pavements flood up to knee level or up to shin level, and you can find there's infections in the water. Pay attention. You've got to come here. Yes, enjoy the experience. Yes, it's an amazing place to be and to holiday and to relax. But if you don't pay proper attention to the precautions, you can have an extremely difficult experience as well. So I just want to get that out the way now before we move on to some of the fun stuff. So here in Rio de Janeiro, it's very easy to stay healthy. There's loads of things you can do in terms of exercise, eating, staying fit and keeping your immune system strong. But on the other side, it's very easy to fall into patterns of malhealth as well. It's very easy to find yourself falling into negative patterns, eating high sugar content. So I'm going to take you through some of the ways that you can stay healthy on a budget and avoid falling into some of the common pitfalls that ruin your health and fitness. If you're planning to stay in Rio for more than 1 week, I highly recommend getting a handle on your health. Rio is a place where it's very easy to stay healthy, but it's just as easy, on the other hand, to fall into bad habits and to get unhealthy. I'm going to go through a number of the ways that you can stay healthy and avoid the common pitfalls of being unhealthy, but just to say that there are a lot of problems in terms of health, right? If you get bitten by a mosquito, there are what we call gringo flus, where tourists come here and their bodies haven't adapted to some of the strains of flu, some of the problems, so they get very sick as they adapt to the sort of common infections and common colds that exist here in Rio. So in order to avoid these, I recommend keeping your immune system strong, keeping healthy, and so I'm going to take you through a few of the ways that you can do that. Firstly, to say I'm someone that likes to use gyms, and Rio has a lot to offer in terms of fitness, gyms, and ideas on the above. So, the most common gym here is called Smart Fit. That's Smart Fit in English. They call it Smart Fit. Smart Fit is a very basic gym where it's good quality, great quality professional equipment. They have them on virtually, 3 or 4 in every borough of Rio, so you're never far away from a Smart Fit. It's roughly £20, $25 per month to get a membership, and you're not really going to go wrong with Smart Fit. The one thing is that you need a CPF to sign up. So if you don't have your unique identification number here in Rio, then you're not going to be able to sign up to Smart Fit. For me, I chose, instead of Smart Fit, Body Tech. Now, Body Tech is the kind of upper tier of gym. If Smart Fit is the pure gym of the UK, Body Tech is the Virgin Active. So Body Tech is about 2 or 3 times the price for very similar equipment. The only difference is that at Body Tech you have the spa, you have the swimming pool, you have generally nicer areas and richer clientele. So everyone goes to Smart Fit. Only the sort of rich or wealthy or people who want to spend more will go to Body Tech. But just like Smart Fit, Body Tech, you'll find them virtually everywhere. Leblon, Ipanema, Copacabana, Botafogo, and a few in the center where we are right now. Currently we're outside the Museum of Modern Art in Rio de Janeiro, and there are fewer, but there will be some around the central areas as well. If you're not someone that likes to sign up for the gym membership, you like to wing it and take the more relaxed style, then we have what we call here in Rio, Flintstones, the direct translation being Flintstones. Basically what these are like literally a Flintstone gym, where they're handmade gyms in a few locations. People will get a cheap bar, scaffolding bar or something, cement and concrete in buckets on the end and create barbells. And these gyms are pretty cool actually. They work. You just got to pay respect to the fact that they're delicate, they're fragile, and a lot of people who can't afford gym memberships use these as their bread and butter. And so you shouldn't be there doing deadlifts and then dropping the bar or dropping the weights. Be very careful and respectful of other people's use of the equipment. But they exist on Flamengo Beach, they exist in Leblon and Apoador Beach next to Ipanema. Again, for all of this information, join the Facebook group and I'll give you the cheat sheet for free, which will include all of the best gym locations, all of the best ways to stay healthy, and you can ask me any personal questions there as well. So after the gyms, you've also got some gyms along the beach, basically pull-ups and dips bars where you can exercise there, and there are free classes on the beach, so people will bring their own equipment and you can join a class on the beach where people are going to be working out with some gym equipment. Outside of the gyms, you've obviously got sport. So here in Rio, a lot of the sport exists on the beach. The 3 major sports that might be of interest to you as a traveler are going to be volleyball, which is the sort of traditional middle-class sport that's played here in Rio. All along Copacabana, Ipanema, Flamengo, Leblon Beach, people are playing traditional volleyball, and you can join for a free class called Aula Gratis, a free class, and you can get a taste, get a flavor of what it's like to play the sport and stay healthy. After volleyball, you have futevôlei, which is a Brazilian Portuguese adaptation of volleyball, where it's volleyball, but you can only use your feet, knees, hands, anything but the hands, your head and your foot most commonly, and that's futevôlei. And that is usually a little bit more trendy at the moment. So that's kind of the fashionable sport that young people are playing on the beach. If you're a single guy or a single girl, you're likely to meet a lot of very attractive people playing volleyball or foot volley. Finally, you have surfing, where you can also sometimes do a free class. I know a very good surf school here in Rio, so if you're interested in getting some experience with surfing, again, join the Facebook group and I'll give you all the information you need. And finally, the sport on the beach, alchinha. Now, alchinha literally translates as little high, but what it means is basically like, we call it bums in the UK, where you're just kicking the ball up and you're sort of passing it between 2 or 3 people, but there are loads of people playing alchinha on the beach, and you can basically go up to groups if you've got a bit of confidence and just ask if you can join in, or bring your own ball and allow people to ask to join in with you. So this is both keeping you healthy and it's also a great social avenue. By playing these sports, you get to meet a lot of people. So finally, with regard to your health, I recommend being careful about what you eat here in Rio de Janeiro. So generally speaking, it's quite easy to eat healthy. As we talked about earlier, you can buy these executivo, which is rice, beans, some salad or vegetables and some meat. And this is pretty healthy and usually very cheap. The other options are suco, juices. If you want to drink juices, they're normally very easy to get hold of, very fresh fruit and vegetables, and relatively cheap. So if you let your diet consist of sort of eggs, meat, vegetables, juices from the little bars and botecos, you can live a very healthy lifestyle along with going to the gym, running on the beach, swimming in the sea, doing your free sport classes, and then maybe joining a group and paying a small fee of money for it. It's easy to stay healthy, but the other side is that it's easy not to as well. Now, one thing I noticed about Rio coming from the UK is that in the UK, we're aware of this scandal that existed about 10, 15 years ago, where sugar companies were lobbying to change the science literature on what is bad for your health in terms of fats versus sugars. And we know now that sugar companies paid a huge amount of money to influence scientists to report on the negative effects of saturated fat. However, on cardiovascular diseases versus the effects of sugar. So they said, sugar's fine, eat as much sugar as you want, saturated fats are the problem. And that led to a big scandal in the US and the UK. However, here in Rio, that hasn't fully been understood yet. And so what you'll often find is people advertising low fat, but they don't list the sugar content on some of the products. And so what I've realized here in Rio is that people consume a lot of sugar. They have their açaí, they have a lot of sorvete, ice cream, and even things in the supermarket. If you want to buy a natural yogurt, you may not find sugar listed on some of the products, but actually it's very high in sugar content. So I would just say be aware that sugar is very addictive, it's extremely unhealthy, and if you're not careful, it's very easy to get addicted and actually increase your sugar intake massively here in Rio de Janeiro. So I would do your best to avoid eating too much açaí, avoid eating foods that have high sugar content because it is very addictive and you'll find yourself low on energy, gaining weight and generally being unhealthy, when it's actually really easy, if you're careful, to stay healthy, to eat cheap, to eat clean and to stay fit and healthy. So when I'm planning my life, and particularly here in Rio, but also every day, I like to plan my day and my life in terms of my wealth, my health and my love. Keeping a balance between your finances, your wealth and your potential to create wealth, your health, your fitness, your security, your love, your relationships, your friends, your family. So we've gone through the financial side of Rio, the wealth. We've gone through the health. We've gone through the sport, the exercise, the things to eat. So finally, let's finish on the love side. How do you build a social network? How do you meet friends and make friends? How do you date and build relationships here in Rio de Janeiro? So let's start with the social side. The first thing to say is that there's a big lunch culture here in Brazil, which we don't have in the UK. People take lunch very seriously. They have an hour break and they really use that break. They go out and eat lunch at a restaurant with friends and they talk and they joke and they laugh and they use that time well. So if you do have any connections, any friends, any people that you know here ahead of time and they're working, bear in mind that they're gonna have a lunch break. And I've found that this changing culture of embracing that hour-long lunch break and really using it to have a good lunch and to socialize has been really an improvement on the way that I live and the way that I treat my day. So firstly, bear in mind lunch breaks are a big deal. Use that time to connect, build relationships with friends and people that you know. The second thing to think about is, as we've already talked about with the sports classes, the volleyball, foot volley, surfing, fitness on the beach, any one of these classes provides an amazing opportunity not only to build a little social network, to make friends, but also a dating opportunity. These classes are filled with young, attractive people, all scantily clad, playing and moving on the beach. So if you're looking to date Brazilian men or women, or meet tourists here, friends, potential people you can hook up with or build a relationship with, I highly recommend at least going to one of these free classes as an amazing social opportunity. The CrossFit classes, as we talked about briefly before, also provide a great opportunity. CrossFit is the sort of social, communal, community sport, and it's becoming more and more popular in Rio de Janeiro. So if you're not using the body tech, the smart fit, those gyms, CrossFit is a really good option, both for exercise, but also to build that social circle. So let's look at nightlife. As I said before, nightlife is very much continuing here in Rio de Janeiro through the pandemic. And as I've said as well, Leblon is the place that you really want to stay if you're looking to meet cool people, other tourists, and young, attractive cariocas, locals here in Rio. In Leblon, there's one bar in particular that right now I recommend, and that bar is called Bar Boa Praça. Again, I'm going to attach the name in the cheat sheet on the Facebook group. The name is Bar Boa Praça. Now this bar, beautiful young people from all over Rio travel here on a Friday, Saturday, sometimes Thursday night to sip their caipirinhas or their beers, to talk in a quiet environment. There's not loud music playing. It's not the same as nightlife in England where it's all about loud music, drinking loads of alcohol. Here it is a social nightlife. People go out primarily to talk, then to drink a little bit to aid the conversation. And then it's not so much about music, even though music is very important here, the samba, the funky, the bossa nova. Music is not the central point of young people's nightlife here in Rio. Talking and conversation is. And if you're a guy that's a single guy, you want to meet some friends, you want to date some women, I highly recommend Bar Boa Praça for the nightlife. There you'll find all of the beautiful young Brazilian people that you're going to want to meet. Here in Rio, the social culture and the dating culture is much more relaxed than it is in the UK, across Europe, and in the United States. People are generally very receptive to a conversation. If you walk up and you say, "Hey, how are you doing?" people most often are going to respond to you, and they're going to respond kindly and well. Women openly like to receive attention. That's part of the reason why they've come out. They like to talk to guys. And the guys are very forward here. Guys don't have a lot of nerves about going and talking to a group of women. So there's this circular nature that makes everything easier. The men are more confident, the women are more confident, sexual attitudes are more relaxed, conversation flows more easily, people are more social generally. And so if you're a tourist, I recommend very quickly trying to adapt to Brazilian culture. Starting conversations, going out with friends and meeting other people, because people are much easier to meet. It's much easier to date and make friends and build relationships here than it is particularly in the UK. Have you been approached by foreigners, estrangeiros?
Yeah.
Aqui
Yeah.
na praia, on the beach?
Once. Yeah, but it's
Twice
different.
now, huh?
Twice now, yeah.
Twice.
But it's different.
Yeah. They're more polite. Foreigners
Yeah.
are more, excuse
Yeah.
me, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Exactly.
Yeah, quite shy. as
Quite
well,
shy.
I guess.
Yeah.
That's typical of
Yeah.
Western Europe, like England.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like I don't know, I lived abroad for a while and I traveled to many places, but I feel that like, I don't know, the impression that I get of foreigners, it's like they are very shy. It can be like quite cute, but at the same time sometimes it's really hard to hold the conversation.
I think they're maybe afraid of being rude. And
Yeah.
So they're
Too straightforward.
careful. Yeah.
Sure.
On the way of talking.
So, in terms of actually meeting someone, right, so if a person goes to a bar, how would they engage a carioca in conversation? How would they begin a conversation?
I don't know.
you are drunk, it's easy.
Yeah, it's true.
You know?
I think Carioca is a very receptive person.
Yeah.
For example, I talk. Eu não sei como é que eu falo com qualquer pessoa. I talk with everybody.
Yeah.
Todo mundo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you came here and like this, you hello, I will
It's okay.
talk with you.
Depends on the person. I guess.
Do you think, are you now, would you still kiss people, or are you scared of the virus? Getting a virus if you kiss?
I'm scared.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So maybe the culture changes now. People don't kiss because they're scared of the virus.
Até sair a vacina, né?
Eu não posso falar muito porque eu já fiz muita merda já.
I don't know what I'm gonna say.
Until?
Tipo,
Como é que é a
until the
vaccine?
yeah.
Until the vaccine comes,
Yeah.
no kissing. No kissing and no sex.
Nah, I can't say that.
I think it's more selective now.
Yeah, you've got to be. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through a few of the best bars, some of the places that you should think about, and then you can find all the others in the cheat sheet that I'm attaching. But to start off with, you've got Bar Boa Praça. Now, Bar Boa Praça is on Rua Dias Ferreiras. Now, this road also has a load of other bars. The whole street is full. The whole street is busy and full of people talking. Sometimes so much that cars can't pass through because people are just spilling into the streets and talking. So I'm going to go through first Leblon. In Leblon, you have Boa Praça, the bar that I spoke about. You have Joby, which is an old traditional pizza and beer serving restaurant bar where a lot of the more traditional Brazilians go. And later on in the night, around 3, 4 a.m., is normally when it gets busy, and a lot of the guys are hunting a lot of the women at that time, and it's a very lucrative place for people looking to hook up. That becomes a very interesting place to go in the early hours of the morning. Then you also have Belmonte, Boteco Belmonte, which is a chain of bars. That's Belmonte with an E at the end. And this is also full of people. Currently it's showing a lot of sports, so there's a bit more man heavy than women heavy, whereas Boa Praça is more woman heavy. But Belmonte is a great place as well. It's more of a sports bar that does good quality but expensive tourist price food. So that's Leblon. Those are the 3 places I'd recommend really in Leblon. Then in Ipanema you have Emporio, a bar called Emporio, which stays open very late, has quite an eclectic group of people, and it's one of the rock bars. Brazilians and particularly Cariocas seem to love rock music, American and British rock music at the moment. So you'll find a very heavy influence of rock music on a lot of the more sort of edgy bars. Then Copacabana, there's really not much to say. There's one club called Phosphobox, which is a sort of electronic, primarily student club for student nights out, where there's like electronic music, and it's the only club that I've been to that more resembles the European style of, you know, electronic music, dance club, where there's more of an emphasis on dancing than socializing. If you move up north from Copacabana, you've got Botafogo, which is, as I said earlier, my second favorite place to live. And in Botafogo, you've got plenty of options. After Leblon, I would say Botafogo is my favorite area to go. Botafogo has Casa da Matriz, a rock bar. It's an old house with a rock bar and a huge open space out the back, full of people of all ages, drinking, listening to music. Also a place that's very heavy on the hooking up culture, if that's something you're interested in. Then you have Bar Bukowski, another rock influenced bar in an old Pé Direito Alto house, meaning a sort of old colonial style house. And that's a theme in Botafogo. It's a little bit more edgy, so there's more of a feeling that it's like, oh yeah, this is an old house, let's turn it into a bar or a club or a cafe. So Botafogo has a load of options. There's one local place, which I'm not going to disclose the name because I want to keep some of these things secret, but if you contact me privately on Facebook, I'll tell you. But it goes by the name of Bambina, and it's an old snooker club. One of my good friends works there. It's a snooker bar with an outdoor area, another one in an old house. It's got karaoke around the back, It's got really beautiful young people always there, drinking beer, playing some pool, and doing some karaoke. So that's the dating side. Those are mainly the places I would go for the dating and the bars. If you want a really heavy night out, like the equivalent of the strip, the sort of Magaluf, Ibiza strip, is in Lapa, which, as we talked about before, is one of the more dangerous places. I don't go there anymore. I went there when I was a little younger, when I was sort of 21, 22, and I had some crazy nights out there in the bars and clubs. But generally now I find that the quality of, it has a lower quality of attractive people there. It's dirty, it's smelly, it's very loud, and there's a level of danger there. But if you want to really go out and party hard, Lapa is the place to go. Just bear in mind the safety precautions that we talked about before, and bear in mind that it's likely to be far away from where you stay. So if you do want to hook up here in Rio de Janeiro, you've got a long taxi ride awaiting you, or you have the option of one of the many sort of sex hotels or motels. Lapa, particularly this in the central area of Rio, has many hotels where you can pay by the hour. And if you meet someone on the day, or a lot of Brazilians who live with their families, if they have girlfriends, they instead take their girlfriends or their dates to one of these motels, these sex hotels, where they're not under the watchful eye of their parents, and it's quick, it's easy, it's relatively cheap. So you've got those options, but honestly, if you're not a complete party animal, I would recommend sticking to Leblon and Botafogo for the majority of your nightlife options. As I said, contact me for any more details, any interest in other places in these areas. And finally, we've talked about the social life, we've talked about the dating, finally the networking. So in terms of building your social network, obviously the easiest way is through friends of friends. We've talked about obviously the sports classes, but if you have friends here, particularly English-speaking Brazilian friends or Portuguese-speaking English or European friends, they are your access key to basically your entire social network and your social life here. I was very fortunate when I arrived to meet a friend of a friend who's one of the most popular tour guides in the whole of Rio de Janeiro. And if you want to get in contact with him and arrange an amazing tour, then obviously getting in touch with me. But he has been my access key to everything in Rio. He knows everyone, he knows everything. And so with him, as long as I stick around him, I basically got to know the kind of people that I wanted to know. And I learned everything I needed to know about Rio, got to practice my Portuguese, and massively, massively improved my social network. So you guys can consider me as your POC, your point of contact in terms of social networking. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, I'm sure I can put you in touch with someone that's going to be of help to you. But just a few tips, as I promised. WeWork and Regus. I think WeWork is closed during the pandemic. Regus stays open. If you're a businessman or an entrepreneur, you want to expand your network, you can have a free viewing of Regus, have a look around and see if you like the vibe. There are going to be other digital nomads and entrepreneurs working there. So if you want to improve your business network, Regus and WeWork will be great options, but right now Regus will be. In Botafogo, there are a number of startups and sort of government-backed projects to improve industry and improve the economy, one of which is called Casa Firjan. Now, Casa Firjan is an industrial support system. So it's a startup that was started to help industry in Rio de Janeiro. But it's an old, beautiful old colonial palace with amazing gardens and amazing cafeterias and lunch spaces where families bring their kids on the weekends to play in the garden. But it's also got amazing networking opportunities. If you feel you have something to offer, if you want to work here, if you want to plant your mark on Rio de Janeiro, go there and talk to them. I've been offered to do some talks there, both on social skills, social networking, based on my education and my qualifications, and also on mindfulness and meditation and adapting mindfulness for the workplace. But there are many opportunities to plant your mark, to network, to build a business network by going to some of these startup places, the foremost of which for me would be Casa Firjan. So I can put you in touch with them, and I'm going to list it on the cheat sheet as well. So the final option here for networking is going to be if you're from the UK, the British school, which exists in Botafogo as well. If you want to teach some classes, if you want to make a bit of money out here, the British school is going to be a great point of contact to offer you opportunities to work if you're from the UK or from the States, and also the American school if you're from the States. There's going to be loads of other Brits and Americans working in those respective places, and they're going to have loads of work and business opportunities and people to connect you with. So I recommend going there, booking an appointment, talking to them about that, and really making the most of your opportunities to network. Finally, I just want to give a few more tips on the dating side of things. Tinder is very commonly used here, and Tinder does work, but I think for a lot of you guys, the best option is actually going to be cold approach, right? You see someone you like, you go and approach them. You go and talk to them. And the best places to do this is going to be Leblon and Ipanema Beach, and the street in front of the beach, and then the street two quadrants back, so 2 blocks back from the beach. In Leblon is going to be the best place to approach women. You also have the shopping malls. You have Shopping Leblon, Shopping Gavia, Shopping Barra de Tijuca. And these places are all going to provide great opportunities to see, approach, meet and date the women that you want to talk to in Rio de Janeiro. I highly, highly recommend this as a way to connect with women, both to strengthen you as a person, to give you confidence, to improve your social skills, your social networks, but also for raw dating opportunities. I highly recommend, if you're a single guy, you work up the courage and gain the skills to go and cold approach women in the daytime. Excuse me. Hi, you're really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. What's your name?
Caroline.
I'm Sam.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And you speak good English.
What?
You speak good English.
Oh, thank you. It's not so much good like this.
It's good so far. I understand everything.
Oh, okay. Good.
Are you from Rio?
Yeah, I live here. No, actually, I'm for another city, but I live here.
Minas Gerais?
See?
Mineira. Belo Horizonte?
No.
Which part?
It's more
In the
far.
countryside.
Yeah.
Is it your first time in Rio?
No, I have 3 years.
Oh, you've lived here for 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay. And you prefer? It's better here? Or it's
Yeah,
better
because
there?
have a lot more things, like more people, more place to go.
Yeah.
Yes, everything.
Well, this area is really nice.
Yeah.
I like Botafogo. I live in Botafogo.
Yeah, you live here.
Yeah.
You live here?
I've lived here since December.
Oh.
So I'm staying
nice.
until March, and then I'm going back to London for 6 months, and then I'm coming back here.
Yeah, it's nice. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome to you as well. I mean, you've been here for 3 years, so you've had a bit more time than me. But,
Yeah.
and you work here?
Yeah. I work
Wait,
on-
let me guess. Do you work in body tech?
No.
Okay.
No.
Don't worry, I'm not going to guess again. That's all I've got.
I hate him.
Really?
Yeah.
So wait, this is just your genetics then?
No, yeah, because I was making Pilates. I don't know
Oh, okay.
how to say that. Pilates.
They have a lot of Pilates in Leblon, huh? A lot of studios
Yeah,
here.
But I'm doing Gavia. Gavia, you know?
Yeah, I know Gavia. As I said, this is my profession. I am primarily a dating and social skills coach. So if you need any help, any advice, any tips on where to go, specifically some of the cultural nuances, what to say, how to speak, and how to date women in Rio, then please get in contact with me, join my Facebook group, or drop me an email at admin@fluid.social. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I have enjoyed the day. We've had a lovely day today doing it. Bit of sunshine, not too hot. Rio's looking beautiful. If you have any thoughts to come out here, I recommend it above anywhere else I've been. I've been all across the world this year. Don't tell anyone. Traveling, I've been in Poland, I've been in Belarus, I've been in Sweden, I've obviously been in London, and I've been in Rio de Janeiro. And this is the place to come right now. Do not hesitate if you're thinking about booking a ticket and coming to stay. Enjoy, safe travels. Sam out.